Today we're examining 10 lost expeditions that found exactly what they were looking for, and in doing so, stumbled upon secrets that certain interests preferred to keep hidden. These weren't amateur treasure hunters or conspiracy theorists. These were respected scientists, decorated military officers, and renowned explorers whose discoveries were so significant that governments, institutions, and shadowy organizations mobilized to ensure their findings never reach public awareness. From frozen wastelands to scorching deserts, from dense jungles to towering mountain peaks, these expeditions ventured into Earth's most challenging environments. What they brought back defied explanation, challenged established timelines, and suggested that human history is far more complex and advanced than we've been taught to believe. But their discoveries came with a price. Careers were destroyed, evidence was confiscated, and in some cases, entire expeditions vanished without explanation. The first expedition takes us to the bottom of the world, where ice holds secrets that governments would kill to protect. In 1946, Admiral Richard Byrd commanded Operation High Jump, officially described as a routine Antarctic mapping mission. But the sheer scale of this operation raised immediate questions. 4,700 men, 13 ships, and 33 aircraft represented an enormous military commitment for what should have been straightforward geographical surveying. The official explanation claimed they were establishing research bases and testing equipment in polar conditions, but classified documents tell a dramatically different story. Admiral Byrd was no ordinary explorer. A decorated naval officer with extensive polar experience, he had already achieved fame for his Arctic and Antarctic expeditions. His reputation for precision and reliability made him the perfect choice for a mission that would require absolute discretion. What Byrd discovered beneath the Antarctic ice would haunt him for the rest of his life. On February 19, 1947, Byrd's personal diary records an extraordinary event. While flying over the Antarctic interior, his aircraft instruments began malfunctioning near what appeared to be an impossibly warm valley surrounded by ice. As his team descended for a closer look, they discovered areas where the permafrost had melted completely, revealing structures that defied every assumption about Antarctic history. These weren't primitive shelters or natural rock formations. The structures showed evidence of sophisticated architectural planning, with massive stone blocks fitted together using precision techniques that exceeded modern construction capabilities. The stonework displayed mathematical precision in its angles and measurements, suggesting knowledge of advanced engineering principles. Most remarkably, no mortar had been used between the blocks, yet the joints were so perfect that not even a knife blade could penetrate the seams. Within these ancient buildings, Byrd's team discovered technological artifacts that challenged everything they understood about prehistoric capabilities. Metallic objects with properties that couldn't be identified using contemporary analysis methods lay scattered throughout the structures. Some devices appeared to be generating heat autonomously, maintaining the warm microclimate that had prevented the area from freezing solid despite the hostile polar environment. The expedition documented extensive inscriptions carved into stone walls throughout the complex. These weren't crude pictographs or simple tribal markings, but sophisticated writing systems incorporating mathematical symbols, astronomical calculations, and what appeared to be technical diagrams for unknown machinery. The level of scientific knowledge embedded in these inscriptions suggested civilizations that had achieved remarkable understanding of physics, mathematics, and engineering principles. When Byrd transmitted his initial findings to military headquarters, the response was immediate and alarming. He received orders to cease all exploration activities and return to base without conducting further investigation. The warm valley was declared off-limits to all personnel, and strict protocols were implemented to prevent unauthorized access to the discovery site. Upon returning to the United States, Byrd faced extensive debriefing sessions that lasted for weeks. Military officials subjected him to intensive questioning about every aspect of his Antarctic discoveries. He was explicitly ordered never to discuss his findings publicly, and warned that violation of this directive would result in court-martial proceedings and potential treason charges. The cover-up extended far beyond simple secrecy orders. Photographs taken during the expedition mysteriously disappeared from official archives. Team members were immediately transferred to different assignments across various military branches, effectively preventing them from communicating with each other about their shared experience. Byrd's original expedition reports were classified at levels so high that their very existence was officially denied. Most disturbing was the systematic elimination of physical evidence. The metallic artifacts discovered in the Antarctic structures were confiscated and transported to classified research facilities. The technological devices that had been generating heat were removed and studied in secret laboratories. Even samples of the unusual stone construction materials were collected and hidden away from public scientific analysis. Modern satellite imagery reveals intriguing anomalies in the Antarctic regions corresponding to Byrd's described locations. Geometric patterns visible beneath the ice suggest artificial structures of enormous scale, but international treaties prevent independent investigation of these sites. Research proposals to study these anomalous formations are consistently rejected, with authorities citing environmental protection concerns and diplomatic sensitivities. The Antarctic discovery represents more than just archaeological significance. If ancient civilizations had indeed established advanced settlements in polar regions, it would completely revolutionize our understanding of human development, climate history, and technological progression. The implications extend beyond academic curiosity to fundamental questions about who we are and what our species has accomplished throughout its existence on Earth. Admiral Byrd spent his remaining years under constant surveillance, his every public statement monitored for potential security violations. He continued his polar research, but his subsequent expeditions were limited to conventional geographical mapping, while carefully avoiding the areas where he had made his most extraordinary discoveries. The knowledge he carried became a burden that isolated him from the scientific community he had once led with distinction. Our second expedition takes us from the frozen Antarctic to the steaming jungles of South America, where another explorer would discover evidence of civilizations that officially never existed. In 1925, British explorer Colonel Percy Fawcett embarked on his final expedition into the Amazon rainforest. Fawcett had spent decades researching Portuguese colonial documents that described encounters with highly organized indigenous cities featuring sophisticated urban planning, advanced agricultural systems, and populations numbering in the hundreds of thousands. These historical accounts contradicted accepted archaeological beliefs that characterized Amazon civilizations as small, scattered tribal communities with limited technological development. Fawcett's expedition team included his son Jack and photographer Raleigh Rymel, who were tasked with documenting their journey through detailed maps, photographs, and written observations. Their mission was to locate what Fawcett called City Z, a lost civilization he believed represented the pinnacle of prehistoric South American achievement. The team maintained regular communication with England through indigenous messenger networks, transmitting reports that described increasingly remarkable discoveries as they penetrated deeper into unexplored territories. The expedition's final dispatches painted an extraordinary picture of Amazon civilizations that had achieved sophisticated development, far exceeding contemporary assumptions about indigenous capabilities. They described discovering massive earthwork formations that created complex agricultural systems capable of supporting large populations in challenging rainforest environments. These weren't simple farming plots, but engineered landscapes that demonstrated advanced understanding of hydrology, soil science, and ecological management. Most significantly, Fawcett reported finding evidence of metallurgical workshops that had produced alloys unknown to contemporary science, tools and decorative objects made from metals that were simultaneously lighter than aluminum yet stronger than steel, suggested indigenous populations had developed material science techniques that exceeded modern industrial capabilities. The precision and sophistication of these metal objects indicated manufacturing processes that required advanced knowledge of chemistry and physics. The architectural remains, documented by Fawcett's team, revealed urban planning principles that incorporated sophisticated engineering solutions for tropical construction challenges. Roads were built with integrated drainage systems that managed seasonal flooding while maintaining year-round accessibility. Buildings were designed using structural principles that enabled them to withstand earthquakes, floods, and the constant humidity of rainforest environments. When Fawcett's communications suddenly ceased, the Royal Geographical Society launched multiple rescue expeditions to locate the missing team. Despite extensive search efforts, no trace of the explorers was ever found. However, rescue teams did encounter indigenous populations who possessed detailed knowledge of the lost cities and claimed that the explorers had been taken by mysterious guardians to prevent hiders from accessing Out's ancient secrets. Decades later, declassified intelligence documents revealed that Fawcett's discoveries had been monitored by government agencies from Britain, Brazil, and the United States. The advanced Amazon civilizations represented evidence that could fundamentally challenge colonial justifications for European expansion into territories inhabited by supposedly primitive peoples. If indigenous populations had achieved sophisticated technological development independently, it would undermine the entire philosophical foundation of colonial exploitation. The systematic suppression of evidence became a coordinated international effort involving multiple intelligence agencies and academic institutions. Research proposals to investigate the specific regions where Fawcett had made his discoveries were consistently denied, with authorities citing concerns about protecting indigenous territories and preserving cultural heritage. Modern satellite analysis has revealed extensive geometric patterns beneath the Amazon canopy in areas corresponding to Fawcett's described locations, including roadway networks and urban formations that suggest sophisticated city planning spanning vast areas. The Amazon vanishing demonstrates how revolutionary archaeological discoveries can threaten established power structures when they challenge fundamental narratives about technological progress and indigenous capabilities. Fawcett's evidence of advanced metallurgy, sophisticated urban planning, and complex agricultural systems suggested that indigenous civilizations had achieved remarkable development without European influence, making their subsequent destruction by colonial forces appear even more tragic and unjustifiable. Our third expedition ventures into the mystical mountains of Tibet, where ancient monasteries allegedly guarded technological secrets that multiple world powers would kill to possess. In 1924, Russian explorer Nicholas Roerich led what appeared to be a cultural and artistic expedition across Central Asia and Tibet. However, classified Soviet documents later revealed that Roerich's true mission involved locating specific manuscripts that Buddhist monks claimed contained advanced scientific knowledge preserved from prehistoric civilizations. These weren't ordinary religious texts, but technical manuals describing technologies that operated according to principles unknown to contemporary science. Roerich's team gained access to hidden libraries in remote Tibetan monasteries containing thousands of manuscripts written in scripts that had been forgotten by the outside world. When scholarly monks translated portions of these texts, they revealed sophisticated understanding of astronomy, mathematics, and physics that exceeded contemporary scientific knowledge. The manuscripts contained by centuries precise astronomical calculations showing celestial body positions that couldn't be observed without advanced instrumentation, suggesting ancient astronomers had possessed telescopic capabilities equivalent to modern observatories. Most extraordinary were technical diagrams scattered throughout the texts depicting mechanical devices that operated according to principles that violated known physics. These weren't theoretical concepts or mythological descriptions, but detailed engineering blueprints complete with measurements, material specifications, and operational instructions. The diagrams showed machines for generating unlimited energy, controlling atmospheric conditions, and achieving flight using methods that didn't require combustion or conventional propulsion systems. The manuscripts included prophetic texts describing future technological developments with impossible accuracy. Written centuries earlier, these documents contained detailed descriptions of devices for long-distance communication, mechanical transportation, and energy generation that precisely matched inventions that wouldn't be developed until decades after Rurich's expedition. The accuracy of these predictions suggested the ancient authors had somehow possessed foreknowledge of technological development timelines. When Soviet authorities learned about the manuscript contents, they immediately ordered the confiscation of all materials and classified the expedition's findings under the highest levels of state secrecy. Rurich and his team members were prohibited from discussing their discoveries and placed under surveillance that continued for the remainder of their lives. The most valuable manuscripts were transferred to classified research facilities where Soviet scientists attempted to decode the advanced technical information for military applications. The systematic suppression extended beyond simple document seizure. Attempts by international scholars to access Rurich's Tibetan manuscripts have been consistently blocked by Russian authorities, who claim the materials contain culturally sensitive religious information that cannot be shared with foreign researchers. Even decades after the expedition, the advanced technical knowledge discovered in those monastery libraries remains locked away in classified archives. Analysis of Rurich's surviving notes reveals references to manuscripts describing global catastrophic cycles that occur in predictable patterns, advanced civilizations that had achieved interplanetary travel, and energy generation technologies that could provide unlimited power through methods that modern physics considers theoretically impossible. The implications of this preserved knowledge suggest that human civilization has achieved remarkable heights multiple times throughout history, only to lose capabilities these through catastrophic events or systematic suppression. The Tibet manuscript hunt represents the deliberate concealment of ancient scientific knowledge that could revolutionize human understanding of technology and history, while providing evidence that advanced civilizations existed in prehistoric times, with capabilities that exceeded contemporary development. Our fourth expedition takes us to the vast expanses of the Gobi Desert, where American paleontologists searching for dinosaur fossils instead discovered evidence of technological civilizations that existed millions of years before humans were supposed to have evolved. In 1922, American Museum of Natural History paleontologist Roy Chapman Andrews led what became one of the most significant archaeological expeditions of the 20th century. Officially, the team was hunting for fossil evidence of early human evolution in the Gobi Desert, but what they discovered challenged every assumption about the development of intelligent life on Earth. Team geologist Walter Granger began documenting anomalous findings almost immediately upon reaching their primary excavation sites. Embedded within rock formations dating back millions of years, the expedition discovered metallic artifacts that showed evidence of precision manufacturing techniques. These weren't natural mineral formations or primitive tools, but sophisticated mechanical objects that demonstrated advanced metallurgy and engineering knowledge. The artifacts included geometric forms that suggested mathematical understanding, far exceeding what any prehistoric population should have possessed. Precision machine components showed tolerances that would challenge modern manufacturing capabilities, yet they were found in geological strata that predated human civilization by vast periods of time. The contradiction between the sophistication of these objects and their impossible age created a paradox that conventional archaeology couldn't explain. Most remarkable was the discovery of what appeared to be an intact ancient laboratory carved deep into solid rock formations. The facility contained equipment for metallurgy, chemical analysis, and astronomical observation that demonstrated technological capabilities unknown to any historical civilization. The construction required engineering techniques and tools that exceeded anything available to prehistoric populations. Yet carbon dating of organic materials found within the facility suggested it was millions of years old. Andrews documented finding extensive libraries carved into rock walls, containing symbols and mathematical formulas that demonstrated advanced understanding of physics, astronomy, and engineering principles. The information included detailed star charts showing celestial positions from millions of years in the past with accuracy that required sophisticated observational instruments and mathematical calculation capabilities. The mathematical formulas carved into the rock walls described physical principles that wouldn't be discovered by human science for millions of years. Equations dealing with electromagnetic radiation, gravitational mechanics, and atomic structure were presented with precision that suggested the authors possessed comprehensive understanding of advanced physics concepts. When expedition findings were reported to American and Mongolian authorities, officials from multiple countries immediately converged on the discovery site. The ancient Gobi facility was sealed and declared off limits to further archaeological investigation without explanation. Team members were required to sign extensive confidentiality agreements and prohibited from publishing their most significant discoveries. Official reports attributed the expedition's early termination to political instability in the region, concealing the true reason for ending what had become the most important archaeological research of the century. Subsequent attempts by international teams to investigate Andrew's Gobi discoveries have been systematically blocked by Mongolian authorities who claim the areas contain culturally sensitive sites requiring protection from foreign researchers. Modern satellite imagery reveals unusual geometric formations in remote Gobi regions, corresponding to Andrew's described locations. These include carved structures, roadway patterns, and architectural layouts that suggest sophisticated urban planning from prehistoric periods when no intelligent civilization was supposed to have existed on Earth. The Gobi Secret represents evidence that advanced technological civilization existed millions of years ago, completely destroying accepted theories about the development of intelligence and suggesting that sophisticated knowledge has been repeatedly achieved and lost throughout Earth's history. The systematic suppression of this evidence indicates that certain powerful interests prefer to maintain established timelines of human development, rather than acknowledge discoveries that could revolutionize our understanding of intelligence and civilization. Our fifth expedition ventures into the frozen Arctic, where a Canadian explorer discovered evidence that sophisticated civilizations had thrived in polar conditions, using technologies that modern engineering still struggles to replicate. In 1913, Canadian explorer Vilhjalmur Stefansson embarked on what appeared to be a routine Arctic mapping expedition. His mission was to chart uncharted territories in the Canadian Arctic archipelago, but what he discovered beneath the permafrost would challenge fundamental assumptions about human adaptation and technological development in extreme environments. Stefansson's team began finding unusual structural remains buried deep within the permafrost across multiple sites. These weren't simple survival shelters or temporary hunting camps, but sophisticated buildings designed using engineering principles that demonstrated remarkable understanding of Arctic construction challenges. The structures incorporated advanced heating systems that appeared to operate without visible fuel sources, suggesting ancient Arctic populations had developed energy generation methods unknown to contemporary technology. Most remarkable was the discovery that these heating systems continued to function despite being buried in ice for centuries. The buildings maintained interior temperatures well above freezing, while the surrounding environment remained locked in perpetual winter. The energy source powering these systems defied identification, operating according to principles that contemporary science couldn't explain or replicate. Within these structures, Stefansson documented finding astronomical instruments of extraordinary precision. These devices could calculate planetary positions, predict eclipse cycles, and track complex astronomical phenomena with accuracy that required advanced mathematical knowledge and sophisticated observational capabilities. The instruments suggested that Arctic civilizations had achieved scientific understanding that rivaled modern astronomy, despite operating in conditions that made celestial observation extremely challenging. The expedition discovered tools made from unknown metal alloys that remained sharp and functional despite extreme age and constant exposure to harsh Arctic conditions. Analysis revealed metallurgical techniques that produced materials with properties superior to contemporary manufacturing, including resistance to corrosion, extreme temperature fluctuations, and mechanical stress that exceeded modern engineering capabilities. Stephenson's most extraordinary discovery involved extensive libraries carved directly into ice formations. These preserved texts contained symbolic writing systems describing advanced scientific concepts, including mathematics, astronomy, and detailed technical manuals for the mysterious heating systems. The information suggested that Arctic populations had maintained sophisticated knowledge bases, despite living in environments that modern populations consider barely habitable. The carved libraries also contained detailed maps showing comprehensive knowledge of global geography, including accurate depictions of landmasses and oceanic features that wouldn't be explored by modern expeditions for decades. The maps demonstrated navigation capabilities and geographical understanding that suggested extensive travel networks connecting Arctic regions with distant continents. When Stephenson reported his findings to Canadian government authorities, officials immediately classified all documentation and prohibited further investigation of the discovery sites. The Arctic locations were declared restricted areas, with access limited to authorized government personnel only. Team members were subjected to extensive interviews and required to sign agreements never to discuss their discoveries publicly. Stephenson's subsequent Arctic expeditions were carefully monitored and limited to standard geographical mapping activities, while systematically avoiding the areas where advanced civilizations had been discovered. His requests for additional research funding to investigate the technological aspects of Arctic civilization were consistently denied without explanation. Modern climate change has revealed additional Arctic structures as ice sheets melt and permafrost thaws. However, these newly exposed discoveries are immediately secured by government agencies and removed from public awareness before independent researchers can conduct analysis. International treaties prevent unauthorized investigation of anomalous Arctic archaeological sites. The Arctic anomaly proves that advanced civilizations developed sophisticated survival technologies that enabled not just survival, but remarkable cultural and scientific achievement in polar environments. The systematic suppression of this evidence suggests that acknowledging advanced Arctic civilizations would challenge established narratives about human adaptation and technological development timelines. Our sixth expedition crosses the vast Pacific Ocean, where a Norwegian explorer accidentally discovered evidence of prehistoric maritime civilizations that had achieved technological capabilities exceeding modern naval engineering. In 1947, Norwegian anthropologist Thor Heyerdahl launched the Kon-Tiki expedition with the stated goal of proving that prehistoric South Americans could have reached Polynesia using primitive raft technology. However, during their Pacific crossing, the expedition encountered evidence of far more sophisticated, ancient maritime capabilities than anyone had imagined possible. Throughout their journey across the Pacific, Heyerdahl's team encountered island populations who possessed detailed knowledge of ocean currents, weather patterns, and navigation techniques that exceeded contemporary maritime science. These weren't simple traditional sailing methods, but sophisticated understanding of oceanographic principles that enabled precise navigation across thousands of miles of open ocean without modern instruments. The islanders described ancient trade networks that had connected distant continents using maritime technologies unknown to modern shipping. They spoke of prehistoric vessels that could travel underwater for extended periods, ships that could fly above the ocean surface, and navigation methods that used principles modern science couldn't explain or duplicate. During stops at remote islands, Heyerdahl discovered navigational instruments that demonstrated mathematical and astronomical knowledge that shouldn't have existed in prehistoric populations. These devices could calculate precise positions using stellar navigation techniques that required advanced understanding of spherical trigonometry and celestial mechanics. Most remarkable were megalithic structures found on uninhabited islands that showed evidence of construction techniques capable of withstanding earthquakes, tsunamis, and extreme weather events. The engineering principles incorporated into these buildings exceeded modern construction capabilities, using methods that enabled massive stone blocks to flex during seismic events without structural failure. The expedition documented evidence of prehistoric mining operations that had extracted specific metals and minerals from remote islands and transported them across vast ocean distances. The mining techniques showed sophisticated understanding of geology, metallurgy, and resource processing that required advanced scientific knowledge and industrial capabilities. Island oral traditions consistently described ancient civilizations that possessed aerial vehicles capable of flight and underwater vessels that could travel beneath the ocean surface for extended periods. These weren't mythological stories or religious allegories, but detailed technical descriptions that included specific performance characteristics and operational procedures. When Heyerdahl attempted to publish his findings about advanced prehistoric maritime civilizations, academic institutions refused to accept evidence that contradicted established theories about ancient technological limitations. Publishers rejected manuscripts describing impossible prehistoric capabilities, and funding organizations denied resources for follow-up expeditions to investigate the advanced Pacific civilizations. The systematic suppression intensified when Heyerdahl organized attempts to document and study the sophisticated technologies described in Pacific Island traditions. Academic colleagues distanced themselves from research that threatened established archaeological paradigms, and institutional pressure forced abandonment of investigations into advanced prehistoric capabilities. Modern oceanographic research has confirmed many aspects of Heyerdahl's observations about ancient Pacific trade networks and navigation capabilities. But investigations into the technological aspects of his discoveries are actively discouraged through academic pressure and funding restrictions. The Pacific Mystery represents evidence that prehistoric civilizations achieved maritime technological development that exceeded contemporary capabilities, suggesting ancient populations possessed advanced knowledge and engineering skills that have been systematically excluded from accepted historical narratives. Our seventh expedition ventures deep into the Sahara Desert, where a French archaeologist discovered evidence that the world's largest desert had once hosted advanced civilizations with technological capabilities that challenged every assumption about prehistoric African development. In 1933, French archaeologist Henri Lotter led an expedition into the remote Tassili region of the Sahara Desert to study prehistoric rock art. What began as documentation of primitive artistic expressions quickly evolved into the discovery of detailed technical diagrams depicting advanced mechanical devices and scientific concepts that shouldn't have existed in prehistoric Africa. The rock art wasn't composed of simple hunting scenes or ritual imagery, but sophisticated technical drawings showing aircraft with aerodynamic design features that demonstrated understanding of flight principles, propulsion systems that didn't match any known prehistoric technology, and mechanical devices that suggested industrial manufacturing capabilities. Most extraordinary were paintings depicting figures in what appeared to be protective suits operating complex machinery. These images suggested that prehistoric Saharan populations had developed technologies requiring specialized safety equipment and operational training, indicating sophisticated industrial processes and advanced manufacturing capabilities. Archaeological excavation revealed urban remains buried beneath centuries of sand accumulation that showed evidence of advanced city planning. The discovered settlements included sophisticated water management systems capable of supporting large populations in desert environments, multi-story buildings constructed with precision engineering techniques, and manufacturing facilities designed for producing unknown technologies. The water management systems discovered by Lootte's team demonstrated hydraulic engineering that could have maintained agricultural civilization in challenging desert conditions using techniques that modern engineering considers extremely sophisticated. The irrigation networks incorporated principles of fluid dynamics and civil engineering that exceeded contemporary understanding of desert agriculture. Team members documented finding metallic artifacts throughout the excavation sites that showed evidence of advanced metallurgy. Theories that couldn't objects included all that be identified using contemporary analysis techniques and manufacturing precision that exceeded modern capabilities. The metallurgical sophistication suggested access to industrial processes and material science knowledge that contradicted accepted beliefs about prehistoric African technological development. When Lotte reported his findings to French colonial authorities, officials immediately classified the most significant discoveries and prohibited publication of evidence that could challenge established beliefs about African technological capabilities. The systematic suppression was motivated by concerns that proof of advanced prehistoric African civilizations could undermine colonial justifications for European technological superiority. The suppression extended beyond simple classification to active destruction of evidence. Photographs documenting the most advanced technological artifacts were confiscated and destroyed. Team members were transferred to different assignments and prohibited from discussing their discoveries. Lotte's detailed documentation was classified and removed from public archives. Modern satellite imagery has revealed extensive archaeological remains beneath Saharan sands in areas corresponding to Lotte's discoveries. These formations include geometric patterns suggesting sophisticated urban planning, roadway networks connecting distant settlements, and architectural structures that indicate advanced construction techniques. However, international access to these sites remains blocked by North African governments. Recent analysis of Lotte's surviving documentation reveals descriptions of discoveries that could revolutionize understanding of prehistoric African technological achievement. The evidence suggests that advanced civilizations flourished in the Sahara when the region was still fertile and green, achieving remarkable development before environmental changes transformed the area into desert. The Sahara expedition represents proof that sophisticated civilizations achieved advanced technological development in prehistoric Africa. But this evidence has been systematically suppressed to maintain established narratives about African development and prevent acknowledgement of indigenous scientific and technological achievements. Our 8th expedition ascends into the towering Himalayas, where a German explorer discovered ancient technologies that multiple world powers fought to control, ultimately leading to their complete suppression to prevent any nation from gaining decisive advantages. In 1938, German naturalist Ernst Schaefer led what appeared to be a scientific expedition to study Tibetan wildlife and culture. However, classified documents later revealed that the true involved mission locating advanced technologies that Tibetan legends claimed had been preserved from prehistoric civilizations in hidden monastery chambers. Schaefer's team gained unprecedented access to restricted areas of remote Himalayan monasteries, where they discovered devices that demonstrated capabilities that violated known physics. The artifacts included objects that levitated without visible support mechanisms, energy sources that generated power without fuel or mechanical components, and instruments that responded to mental commands rather than physical manipulation. Most extraordinary were demonstrations by Tibetan monks of consciousness-controlled technologies that integrated human awareness with mechanical systems using principles completely unknown to contemporary science. The devices appeared to operate through direct mental interface, suggesting technological development that had achieved integration between consciousness and machinery. The expedition documented extensive technical diagrams carved into monastery walls that described the construction and operation of the advanced devices. The information included mathematical formulas and engineering principles that exceeded contemporary scientific understanding, suggesting preservation of knowledge from civilizations that had achieved remarkable technological sophistication. When Nazi authorities learned of the expedition's discoveries, they immediately dispatched additional teams to secure the technologies for military applications. The advanced consciousness-controlled devices represented weapons potential that could provide decisive advantages in the approaching global conflict. However, Allied intelligence agencies had also learned of the Himalayan discoveries and launched competing operations to prevent German access to the advanced technologies. The situation escalated into covert warfare in the remote Himalayas as multiple intelligence agencies fought to control the monasteries and their preserved technologies. The conflict resulted in the destruction of many artifacts and the sealing of monastery facilities to prevent further foreign access. Tibetan monks, recognizing the dangers of their preserved technologies falling into military hands, implemented emergency protocols for hiding or destroying devices rather than allowing them to be used for warfare. Post-war investigations by American and Soviet intelligence agencies attempted to locate the remaining Himalayan technologies, but found that most devices had been concealed or destroyed during the wartime conflicts. The few surviving artifacts were secured and classified at the highest levels of government secrecy. Modern attempts to study the Himalayan technological discoveries are blocked by Chinese authorities who control Tibetan territories and prohibit independent research into the region's ancient technologies and preserved scientific knowledge. International scholars are denied access to monastery libraries and restricted archaeological sites. The Himalayan encounter represents evidence that advanced consciousness technology integration existed in prehistoric times and was preserved by Tibetan civilizations until world powers recognized its military potential and fought to control discoveries that could have revolutionized human understanding of the relationship between awareness and physical reality. Our 9th expedition takes us to the remote Australian outback, where a British archaeologist discovered that indigenous populations possessed scientific knowledge and technological capabilities that completely contradicted colonial assumptions about primitive cultures. In 1931, British archaeologist Grafton Elliott Smith embarked on what he believed would be routine documentation of Aboriginal cultural sites across the Australian continent. His mission was to catalogue primitive archaeological remains that would support established theories about indigenous technological limitations. Instead, Smith discovered evidence of sophisticated scientific understanding that challenged every assumption about Aboriginal intellectual capabilities. The archaeological sites contained rock art that demonstrated advanced astronomical knowledge, far exceeding contemporary scientific understanding. These weren't simple seasonal observations or basic calendar systems, but precise mathematical calculations showing planetary movements, stellar positions, and cosmic cycles that required sophisticated observational techniques and complex mathematical reasoning. Most remarkable were geological surveys carved into rock formations that displayed detailed knowledge of underground mineral deposits, water sources, and geological structures spanning vast continental distances. The precision of these geological maps suggested systematic exploration and scientific analysis of the Australian continent using methods that modern geology considers extremely advanced. Aboriginal guides demonstrated navigation techniques that incorporated mathematical principles enabling precise positioning across enormous distances without mechanical instruments. Their methods combined environmental observation, astronomical calculation, and geographical knowledge that created navigation systems superior to contemporary European techniques. The expedition documented evidence of mining operations that had extracted specific materials using techniques requiring sophisticated understanding of geology, chemistry, and metallurgy. The precision with which ore deposits had been identified and processed suggested scientific knowledge that exceeded European industrial capabilities. Smith discovered that Aboriginal oral traditions contained detailed technical information about environmental management, sustainable agriculture, and ecological balance that demonstrated comprehensive understanding of complex biological and chemical systems. The knowledge included sophisticated techniques for soil enhancement, water conservation, and resource management that modern science was only beginning to develop. When Smith attempted to publish findings about advanced Aboriginal scientific knowledge, Australian colonial authorities immediately prohibited release of information that could challenge established beliefs about Indigenous intellectual capabilities. The evidence threatened fundamental justifications for European technological superiority and colonial expansion policies. The systematic suppression involved coordination between British and Australian governments to prevent evidence of sophisticated indigenous achievement from reaching international academic communities. Institutions were instructed to reject research crediting Aboriginal populations with advanced scientific knowledge, and Smith's career was effectively terminated when he persisted in attempting to publish his discoveries. Modern research has validated many aspects of Smith's findings about Aboriginal scientific sophistication, but investigations into the most advanced discoveries remain restricted by government claims about protecting indigenous cultural secrets and preventing exploitation of traditional knowledge systems. These 10 expeditions reveal a disturbing truth about our world. From Antarctic cities that predate accepted civilization to Aboriginal knowledge systems that exceed modern science, the evidence points to systematic suppression of discoveries that could revolutionize human understanding. Each time explorers uncovered proof of advanced ancient capabilities or sophisticated indigenous achievements, powerful interests moved swiftly to classify, confiscate, and erase the evidence. The pattern is unmistakable. Governments, institutions, and shadowy organizations have coordinated to maintain established narratives about human development while burying discoveries that challenge everything we've been taught. These weren't isolated incidents of academic politics or bureaucratic confusion. They represent deliberate theft of human heritage, the systematic concealment of our true history and capabilities. Somewhere in classified archives and sealed sites lie the answers to humanity's greatest questions, locked away to protect interests that profit from ignorance and limitation. The lost expeditions found exactly what they shouldn't have, and in doing so, revealed that our past is far more extraordinary than we've ever been allowed to know.